Prayer is often misunderstood in today's fast-paced world. Many see it as a mere checklist of requests sent off into the ether, hoping for resolutions to personal challenges. However, Jesus presents a transformative perspective on prayer, one that is far more profound. He guides us to see prayer not as a simplistic series of demands or wishes but as a doorway to a deeper relationship with God. At its core, prayer is meant to be a sacred conversation, a way to connect our imperfect hearts with divine compassion and wisdom. Jesus teaches that prayer is not about bending God's will to fit our desires but rather aligning our hearts with His ultimate plan. This subtle yet powerful shift transforms prayer from a mechanical exercise into a life-changing dialogue. Thus, entering the space of prayer means opening yourself up to true communion with God. It's about seeking His presence, acknowledging His grandeur, and realizing that this intimacy is meant to transform us from within. Enriching our spiritual journey, each prayer becomes a step towards understanding our divine purpose. When we talk about prayer, it's crucial to recognize its foundation, worship. Jesus taught that prayer should start with acknowledging God's greatness and sovereignty. This isn't about flattery, it's about transforming our perspective. In the act of worship, we're reminded of God's immense power and love, which shifts our mindset from self-centered desires to recognizing His greater plan. Worship in prayer helps us to pause and focus not on our immediate problems but on the eternal nature of God. Essentially, it's a powerful way to reconnect with the divine, setting the stage for a more meaningful dialogue. Jesus demonstrated this approach in the Lord's Prayer, beginning with, "Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name." By honoring God's holiness, we align our hearts in humility and reverence before presenting our petitions. This practice molds our priorities and intentions, laying a solid foundation for an authentic and intimate connection with God. Through worship, prayer transcends being just a routine. It becomes an encounter with the divine, ripe with potential for transformation. When entering into prayer, beginning with worship is transformative. Worship realigns priorities, moving us from self-centered requests to God-centered reverence. It prepares the heart to genuinely connect, allowing us to recognize the majesty of God. Through worship, our spirits are lifted above earthly concerns, shifting focus from our problems to His power. This foundational step is not about reciting perfect words or rituals, it's about sincerely opening our hearts to God's presence. Jesus exemplified this in the Lord's Prayer, teaching us to start by acknowledging God's holiness. Hallowed be your name. By worshiping, we set a tone of humility and gratitude, embracing the awe of His creation and sovereignty. With every genuine word of worship, barriers of pride and fear diminish, paving the way for a deeper and more meaningful dialogue with God. Worship not only honors God, it transforms us, creating a fertile ground where faith can flourish and sincere intentions can be planted. Aligning our hearts with God's will is a foundational aspect of prayer that Jesus emphasized throughout His teachings. Prayer becomes more than just a monologue of desires. It transforms into a dialogue where we align our intentions with the divine. This requires a shift in mindset, from seeing God as a cosmic wish granter to recognizing Him as a guiding presence in our lives. By aligning with His will, our prayers echo the sentiments of, "Your will be done," as taught in the Lord's Prayer. This alignment doesn't mean denying our desires but rather understanding that God's plan may surpass our own understanding and ultimate good. Jesus showed us the power of surrender in prayer, most poignantly in the Garden of Gethsemane, where despite His distress, He submitted to His Father's will. This act was not merely about obedience, but about trust, knowing that God's plan held greater purpose than immediate escape from suffering. When we pray with this trust, our hearts open to transformative possibilities beyond our imagination. An inspiring biblical example of this is Hannah, who prayed fervently for a child. Instead of demanding her desires be met immediately, she surrendered her pain and trusted in God's timing. Her story illustrates how aligning prayer with divine will can bring about unexpected blessings, ultimately resulting in the birth of Samuel, who played a crucial role in Israel's history. Therefore, aligning our hearts with God's will allows us to transcend personal plans and experience the deeper joys of His purpose in our lives. In the Bible, we find profound stories of individuals who experienced transformation through aligning their desires with God's will. One such powerful narrative is that of Hannah, whose story is told in the first book of Samuel. Hannah, deeply grieved by her inability to conceive, approached God with a sincere heart, surrendering her personal longing into His hands. Her prayer was not about demanding a child but about offering her future to God's greater plan. In her vow, she promised that if blessed with a son, she would dedicate him to God's service. This act of faith and trust exemplifies the essence of aligning our will with God's, illustrating that genuine prayer goes beyond a mere focus on our desires. It is about embracing God's purpose for our lives. When we release our grip on personal expectations, we allow room for divine intervention in remarkable ways. Hannah's transformation from a heart of sorrow to one of fulfillment is a testament to the power of surrendering to God's divine will. In our fast-paced world, it's natural to worry about the future. But Jesus emphasizes the importance of finding peace in daily dependence on God. He taught us to focus on our daily needs, reinforcing the fact that God is aware of what we require even before we ask. This idea can be found in the well-known prayer from Matthew chapter 6 verse 11, where Jesus instructs us to pray, "Give us this day our daily bread." This doesn't just refer to physical sustenance but also spiritual nourishment, underscoring a life lived in the moment, deeply connected with God's provision. When we concentrate on today and trust that God holds our tomorrows, we cultivate a profound sense of reliance and gratitude. It's about living in the present, embracing faith over anxiety. Jesus reassures us that when we prioritize seeking God and His righteousness, all other things will fall into place. This daily dependence is not simply about survival but about a vibrant trust-filled life that transforms how we interact with everything around us. Moreover, understanding the importance of daily dependence brings us to the foundation of humility. It's an acknowledgement that we are not self-sufficient. Instead, we are part of a larger plan, guided by a loving and compassionate Father. Through submitting our daily needs, we release control and embrace the serenity of trusting in God's timing and wisdom. This shift provides genuine freedom, allowing us to let go of future worries and experience the abundance of God's grace here and now. In the journey of prayer, forgiveness plays a pivotal role in maintaining and nurturing our connection with God. As taught in Matthew chapter 6 verse 12, forgiveness is not just about setting others free from their debts against us. It is equally about liberating ourselves from the shackles of resentment and bitterness. The act of forgiving is a profound expression of trust in God's justice and mercy. By forgiving, we align ourselves with the divine nature of love and compassion, paving the way for a more profound spiritual intimacy. This forgiveness extends beyond interactions with others and reflects our own need for God's grace every day. Harboring grudges or unforgiveness blocks our hearts from receiving the fullness of God's blessings and answers to our prayers. Thus, engaging in a prayer that seeks God's help in forgiving others and ourselves is crucial. It opens doors to healing and transformation, allowing us to live in the freedom and peace that comes from a heart unburdened by past grievances and filled with God's love. Prayer should be a deeply sincere and personal communion with God, rather than a recitation of perfect words or memorized phrases. Jesus emphasized the authenticity of our hearts in prayer, teaching us through parables such as the Pharisee and the tax collector. The Pharisee, with his grand words, lacked the humility found in the tax collector's simple plea for mercy. This reveals that God values a humble heart over eloquence. In every prayer, focus on genuineness. God knows our hearts and sees beyond our spoken words. Moreover, Jesus' interaction with people demonstrates the power of honest and heartfelt prayer. Consider the story of blind Bartimaeus, who simply cried out, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me," despite the crowd's attempt to silence him. His faith and sincerity captured Jesus' attention, leading to his healing. This story reminds us that it is not the length or complexity of our prayers that counts, but the authenticity and faith they carry. Faith is the currency in the kingdom of God, and when embedded in our prayers, it can move mountains. As Jesus taught, let us strive to approach God with open hearts, trusting that our genuine pleas are heard and valued. Faith in prayer is a powerful force, one that Jesus often highlighted through his teachings and actions. A remarkable example is the story of the woman with the issue of blood. Driven by faith, she believed that simply touching Jesus' cloak would heal her. Despite the crowd surrounding Jesus, she reached out, and her faith made her whole. Jesus recognized her faith and declared, "Your faith has healed you." This story illustrates that it's not about how eloquently we speak or how grand our gestures are, but rather the sincerity and depth of our faith that compels change and receives God's attention. The essence of sincere prayer is confidence in God's love and benevolence, knowing that He listens not to the perfection of our words, but to the faith in our hearts. It is this unwavering belief that invites real transformation and divine response. As we seek to deepen our prayer life, let us remember to pray with a heart full of faith, trusting in God who sees and understands all. Expressing gratitude in our prayers has a transformative effect on our spiritual state. Jesus teaches us this principle, showing that gratitude, even before receiving blessings, aligns us with God's inherent goodness and divine plan. When we begin our prayers with a grateful heart, it shifts our focus from what we lack to what we already have, fostering a sense of appreciation for God's past provisions and endless possibilities. Consider how this perspective can enrich our faith, offering us peace and assurance that our lives are held in God's gracious hands. In the Bible, many figures displayed profound thankfulness. Their stories remind us that gratitude is a powerful act of faith. For instance, Paul, even in his hardships, exemplified a spirit of gratitude, transforming his circumstances into testimonies of divine providence. Through a thankful heart, we invite God's presence into our lives, creating a fertile ground for spiritual growth and manifesting a closer relationship with the Creator. In the realm of prayer, patience serves as a powerful testament to one's faith and trust in God's timing. Reflect on the story of Abraham and Sarah. For years, they yearned for a child, and despite their advanced age, they relied on God's promise, ultimately being blessed with Isaac. This iconic biblical narrative illustrates that God's delays are not denials. Patience fosters a deeper trust and relationship with the divine, allowing believers to embrace His plans over personal timelines. Patience in prayer invites us to surrender the urgency of our desires, replacing them with steadfast faith that God's plan, though it may not align with our immediate wishes, is ultimately for our greatest good. By waiting faithfully, we learn to appreciate the profound wisdom in God's perfect timing, which often aims to refine us spiritually. As we nurture patience in prayer, we find our perspectives transformed, awaiting His answers with a heart full of hope and unwavering conviction. As we draw our exploration of prayer to a close, let's reflect on the transformative power of aligning prayer with the teachings of Jesus. By understanding prayer as more than mere requests, we learn to embrace it as a profound connection with the divine. Beginning our prayers with worship allows us to appreciate God's holiness, setting the tone for humility and reverence. Through aligning our desires with God's will, we transcend our personal agendas and open ourselves to His greater plans. Drawing inspiration from biblical figures like Hannah, by focusing on today rather than being consumed by fears of tomorrow, we foster dependence on God's provision, embodying the trust Jesus exemplified. The sincerity in our dialogues with God, stripped of self-consciousness for flawless words, invites authenticity and faith, much like the woman who touched Jesus' garment and was healed. Gratitude and patience teach us to appreciate God's work in our lives, just as Abraham and Sarah did. May these insights enrich your spiritual journey, fostering a deeper, transformative relationship with God.